Before this month ends, something is about to shift in your life. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but heaven is already moving. This message is for the tired, for the praying mother, for the broken father, for the young person who feels forgotten, for the believer who whispered, "Lord, how much longer?" Before this month ends, God will surprise you. Not by accident, not by luck, but by divine appointment. Stay with me, because this word could change everything. My friends, we are living in uncertain days. Hearts are troubled. Homes are shaking. Nations are confused. And perhaps tonight, you are carrying a burden. You worship on Sunday, but you worry on Monday. You pray, but you're wondering if heaven is listening. And yet I stand here to tell you something with absolute confidence. God has not forgotten you. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 65:24, before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. Did you hear that? I did. Before you finish the prayer, before the tear dries on your pillow, before this month ends, God is already working. You see, we serve a God of suddenlies. When Joseph was in prison, it looked permanent. But in one day, one single day, he went from the pit to the palace. When the children of Israel stood at the Red Sea, it looked impossible. Mountains on one side, Pharaoh on the other. But overnight, God made a highway through the sea. When Mary stood at the tomb of Jesus, it looked final. But on the third day, the stone was rolled away. What am I telling you? God specializes in last-minute miracles. Some of you have been tested this month. Financial pressure, health struggles, family conflict, silent battles of the mind. And the enemy whispered, "It's over." But the devil is a liar. If God wanted it over, you wouldn't still. If your story was done, God would have closed the book. But he hasn't. Before this month ends, something will break. Something will turn. Something will open. Not the Bible says in Lamentations 3:23, His mercies are new every morning. That means every sunrise carries new possibility. Every new day carries unseen favor. Every ticking second is closer to your breakthrough. But listen carefully, here is the key. Surprises from God are not always material. Sometimes the surprise is peace in the storm. Sometimes the surprise is strength you didn't know you had. Sometimes the surprise is salvation. The greatest surprise God ever gave the world was His Son. When humanity was lost, when sin had separated us, when judgment was deserved, God sent Jesus not to condemn the world, but to save it. And the greatest miracle that could happen before this month ends is not money in your bank account, not a new job, not a relationship restored. The greatest miracle is a heart transformed, because when God changes your heart, He changes your eternity. You may be listening tonight far from God. You once believed, you once prayed, but somewhere along the way, life pulled you away. Let me tell you something. God is closer than you think. He is not angry at you. He is calling. He is waiting for you. He is ready to forgive you. Before this month ends, your biggest surprise might be this: peace with God, joy unspeakable, hope restored, chains broken. The cross still saves. The blood still cleanses. The tomb is still empty. And Jesus Christ is still the answer. So I ask you tonight, are you ready for your surprise? Are you ready to trust Him? Are you ready to surrender? Are you ready to say, because when you put your life in God's hands, you are never forgotten. Before this month ends, God will move. God will answer. God will restore. God will surprise you. God will surprise you. Hold on. Keep praying. Keep believing. Your story is not over. The best chapter may be about to begin. And heaven may be preparing an answer you never saw coming. Before this month ends. Aim, my friends, tonight I want you to hear something deep in your spirit. Just because you cannot see God moving does not mean He has stopped working in your life. Many times we expect God to act in loud and dramatic ways, but most of the time God works quietly, patiently, and powerfully behind the scenes. You may be facing a situation where nothing seems to be. You cry, but the circumstances remain the same. You work hard, you stay faithful, you keep believing, and yet on the surface, everything looks unchanged. But I want to tell you something with conviction, and He is never late. He is always working, even in the moments when you feel forgotten. Think about how nature works. The most powerful growth happens where human eyes cannot see. A seed does not grow above the ground first. It grows downward into the soil, strengthening its roots before it ever shows its beauty above the earth. Many of you are in your root growing season right now. You are learning trust. You are learning how to depend on God when there is no visible evidence of progress. And that is not punishment. That is preparation. God is building something in your life that will. The Bible tells us that God works all things together for good for those who love Him. That means even your disappointments are being woven into a bigger story. You may not understand why certain relationships, but God sees the full picture while you only. He is working in opportunities you have not discovered yet. He is preparing blessings that you are not even aware of. You may feel like nothing is happening, but in the spiritual realm, God may already be arranging answers, aligning circumstances, and moving hearts in ways you cannot see. Do not lose hope just because you cannot see movement. Faith is not based on what you can see. Faith is based on who God is, and God has never failed His people. The same God who opened seas, the same God who brought hope to the hopeless, is still working today. Before this month ends, what you thought was stagnant may suddenly begin to move. Before this month ends, what looked silent may suddenly speak with God's favor. So keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting, because even when you cannot see Him, God is still working behind the scenes of your life. My friends, tonight I want you to listen carefully, because this may be the message you need to hear in this very season of your life. Your delay is not the same thing as your denial. So many people live under the heavy burden of thinking that if God has not answered quickly, then God has forgotten them. But I stand here tonight to tell you with certainty and with compassion that God's timing is not like man's timing. Man moves in haste, but God moves in purpose. Man measures success by speed, but God measures success by eternal impact. You may be thinking that because something has not happened yet, it never will happen. But I want you to look deeper into your heart, and promises do not expire just because time passes. You may have been praying for months, maybe even years, for something to change in your life. You may have prayed for financial freedom, for healing in your body, for restoration in your family, or for peace in your troubled mind, and yet the answers have not come in the way you expected. But sometimes God's greatest blessings come in unexpected forms. Sometimes what we call a delay is that there are doors that we wanted so badly, but if God had opened them, we might have walked into danger, heartbreak, or destruction. God is not only a God of blessings, He is a God of protection. And sometimes protection looks like waiting. Look at the life of faith throughout history. Many of God's servants waited before they received it, but waiting never meant that God had abandoned them. It meant that God was preparing something greater than they could imagine. Some of you tonight are standing on the edge of your miracle, but you are tempted to give up because you cannot see the next step. Do not give up. Do not turn back now. You are closer to your breakthrough than you think. Before this month ends, something may begin to shift in your life, not because of your strength, but because of God's faithfulness. God delights in surprising His children with grace. The Bible reminds us that God is able to do exceedingly. That means God is not limited by your imagination, your situation, or your circumstances. You may be praying small prayers because you are afraid to believe for bigger miracles. But God is not afraid of big prayers. God is not limited by impossible situations. Keep believing, keep trusting, and keep holding on, because God is still working, even in the season of waiting. And before this month ends, you may look back and say, God was working all along. My friends, tonight I want you to think about something very simple. There are moments in life when everything can change. You may be living in a season where progress feels slow, where dreams feel distant, and where hope feels tired. But I want to tell you tonight that God is not limited by time. God is not limited by human schedules. God can change a life in a single moment of grace, in a single moment of mercy, in a single moment of divine power. Some of you are waiting for something that seems impossible. You have looked at your situation and thought, this can never change. But I want to challenge that fear tonight with the truth. Time and time again, God moves suddenly. There were people who were broken, people who were rejected, people who were living in darkness, and suddenly God's light broke through their darkness. You may feel like your life is stuck, and sometimes, just when you think nothing is happening, heaven is preparing something powerful. You may not see it with your eyes, but faith is not about seeing. Faith is about trusting the character of God when circumstances do not make sense. Some of you tonight have been praying for a miracle in your family. You want peace in your home. You want love, you want forgiveness to replace anger. And I want you to know that God can change hearts faster than any human effort. God can soften pride. God can heal wounds that have existed for years. Do not stop praying do not stop believing for your children. Do not stop, because God has changed stubborn hearts before, and He can do it again. Others of you are carrying personal battles that nobody else knows about. You smile in public, but inside you feel the pressure of anxiety, loneliness, or fear of the future. But I want to remind you that God sees what people cannot see. God hears prayers that are whispered in private. God notices tears that fall when no one is watching. And before this month ends, God can send peace into your heart that you cannot explain with human logic, peace that does not depend on your circumstances, but peace that comes directly from His presence. Do not underestimate what God can do in a short time. One moment of God's favor can change the direction of your life forever. One moment of divine grace can open doors that have been closed for years. Before this month ends, something may happen that you never planned, never expected, and never imagined. And when it happens, you will know it was not luck. You will know it was the hand of God moving powerfully in your life. Keep believing, keep praying, and keep watching, because God still performs sudden miracles today. My friends, tonight I want to speak directly to you. The enemy of your soul often attacks the hardest when your blessing is closest. You may think the pressure you feel is a sign that you are losing. But I want to tell you something tonight with great conviction. Sometimes pressure is the evidence that something powerful is about to be born in your life. Just like a woman experiences pain before the joy of bringing new life into the world, sometimes God allows spiritual battles because He is preparing something greater than what you can imagine. The darkness does not last forever. Night is always temporary, and dawn is always coming. Some of you have been hearing voices of doubt in your mind. Those voices say you are not good enough. They say your past is too messy. They say your mistakes are too great for God to forgive. But I want you to hear the truth tonight. God's grace is stronger than your past. God's mercy is greater than your failure. The Bible tells us that where sin increased, grace increased even more. That means no matter how broken you feel, no matter how far you think you have fallen, God's love is still reaching toward you. You are not beyond hope. You are not beyond redemption. You are not beyond the reach of God's mercy. There are people listening tonight who feel spiritually tired. You have been fighting battles in your family, in your workplace, in your mind, and in your heart. You feel like you are running on empty, but I want to remind you that God gives strength to the weary. When you feel weak, that is when God never intended for you to carry your burdens by yourself. He invites you to bring every worry, every fear, every disappointment to Him. Before this month ends, God may send, it may come through an opportunity you did not plan. It may come through a moment of peace that suddenly fills your heart. God often moves quietly, but His power is always great. The world may measure success by wealth and status, but God measures success by faithfulness and obedience. You may not be famous, you may not be wealthy, but if you belong to God, you are rich in something far greater than money. You are rich in eternal hope. Tonight, I want you to hold on to faith. Do not surrender to fear. Do not surrender to despair. Keep praying even when answers seem slow. Keep believing even when circumstances look impossible. Because God is still in control. And before this month ends, He can surprise you with grace, mercy, and unexpected blessings that will remind you that He has never left your side. My friends, tonight I want to speak to those of you who feel like I want you to listen carefully, because this message is filled with hope and it is filled with truth from the heart of God. You may feel like your life is moving slowly. You may feel like nothing around you is changing. But I want to remind you tonight that God is still in control of your life, even when you cannot see His hand moving. Faith is not based on what your eyes can see. Faith is based on trusting God when circumstances seem confusing and when your heart feels heavy with uncertainty. Many of you have been praying prayers in secret. You have been speaking to God in quiet moments when nobody else was around. And sometimes you wondered if anyone was. God hears the prayers spoken in silence. God hears the prayers that you could not even put into words. And before this month ends, God can answer prayers you have been praying for years. Not because you are perfect, but because God is faithful. His love depends on who He is. Some of you are carrying emotional burdens that feel too heavy to carry. You smile in front of others, but inside you feel tired. You feel discouraged. You feel like giving up on dreams that once filled your heart with excitement. But I want you to remember tonight that God is the giver of dreams. God is the restorer of broken hopes. God can revive dreams that you thought were dead forever. The Bible tells us that God gives beauty for ashes. That means God can take broken situations. You may feel like your life is filled with ashes tonight, but God is still able to bring beauty out of brokenness. There are people listening tonight who are waiting for financial breakthrough. You are working hard, but the burden is heavy. Bills keep coming. Pressure keeps increasing. But I want to remind you that God is not limited by economic conditions. God owns everything in this world. He can provide in ways that surprise you. He can open doors that no human can open. He can send help from unexpected places. Before this month ends, you may receive help you never expected, provision you never imagined, and favor you never thought you would receive. Do not give up hope. Keep trusting God. Keep believing, even when the future is unclear. Before this month ends, God can move powerfully in your life in ways that will leave you amazed at His goodness and grace. My friends, tonight, I want to speak to the deepest part of your heart, because there are people listening who feel like they are standing in the middle of uncertainty. You may be asking questions that nobody around you can answer. You may be carrying burdens that you have never shared with anyone. But I want you to hear this truth tonight with all compassion and conviction. Your tears have not been wasted, and your pain has not been ignored by God. Heaven sees what people cannot see. Heaven hears what people cannot hear. And before this month ends, God can bring comfort into places of your heart that have felt empty. For a long time, some of you feel lonely tonight. You may be surrounded by people, yet inside you feel isolated. Loneliness does not always mean you are physically alone. Sometimes loneliness is the feeling of being misunderstood, the feeling that nobody truly knows what you are going through. But I want you to know that God knows you completely. He knows your fears. He knows your struggles. He knows the secret prayers you have whispered in the night. The Bible tells us that God is close to the brokenhearted, and that means He does not stand far away from your suffering. He stands near to you in your pain, offering hope, mercy, and love. There are people listening tonight who are worried about the future. You are thinking about tomorrow, about next year, about decisions you must make that seem overwhelming. But I want to remind you that God already knows your future. You do not have to live in fear of what is coming. The same God who has helped you survive every trial in your past is still faithful today. If He carried you through yesterday's battles, He can carry you through tomorrow's struggles. Before this month ends, God may send unexpected encouragement into your life. It may come through someone speaking kind words when you needed them most. It may come through an opportunity you never planned for. It may come through a moment of peace that suddenly fills your heart when you were expecting anxiety. God often works in quiet ways, but His power is always great. The world may value fame, and recognition. But God values faith and humility. Some of you tonight are searching for purpose. You want to know why you are here. You want to know if your life truly matters. I want you to know that you were created with eternal purpose. You were not created by accident. You were not, if with intention and love. And before this month ends, you may begin to see God's purpose unfolding in ways you never expected. Hold on to faith. Keep praying. Keep believing. Because God is still working in your life, even when you cannot see His hand moving. And His love for you will never fail. My friends, tonight I want to speak to you about faith when everything around you is trying to make you give up. I want you to listen carefully, because there are people listening tonight who are standing at a crossroads in their lives. You are facing decisions. You are facing uncertainty. You are facing situations that seem bigger than your strength. But I want to remind you of something powerful and eternal. Faith is not about seeing everything clearly. Faith is about trusting God, even when the road ahead is covered in darkness. Before this month ends, God can strengthen your faith in ways you never expected, not because of your ability, but because of His grace and mercy. There are people tonight who are struggling with fear. Fear about tomorrow, fear about finance, fear about health, fear about family problems. But fear is not from God. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. The enemy wants you to live in fear because fear paralyzes hope. Fear stops you from believing. But I want to tell you tonight with great urgency that God is stronger than your fear. God is stronger than your doubt. God is stronger than your anxiety. And before this month ends, God can replace fear with peace in your heart that you cannot explain. Some of you have been fighting spiritual battles that nobody sees. You go to work, you go to school, you go about your daily life. But inside, there is a battle between hope and discouragement. You feel like giving up on dreams you once believed in, but God has not given up on you. The Bible reminds us that God is able to do great things through ordinary